a tremendous amount of violence that we haven't seen in many years here over the weekend, and it's really going to take a community police strategy to reduce this crime, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing. Over the past few days since I've been in this role, I've been hearing a lot about how we're going to reimagine policing, and that's one of the things I've been doing, listening to our communities. I'm prepared to set up some meetings with our communities so we can really talk about the individual communities and what they value, speak about the cultures of those communities so we can work with them and give them the police service that they desire. And I've been speaking to a lot of people who've been extremely supportive of the police, even during these difficult times. They just want to see the best of us as we want to see the best of them, and we want to work together. So that's my new role here, and that's what I'm prepared to take on. Thank you.
So we'll start with on-topic questions. Anything anyone wants to ask about how the chief does this? Just say your name first so that we hear it.
We'll go here first, and then my old friend Todd here. Hi, ma'am. How are you?
So what is your experience 30 years in the department? What do you think needs to be done to stop the shootings or reduce things down?
Well, I mean, there's a whole lot of variables that go along with the shootings, and I know you all heard the police commissioner's comments. But from my perspective, it's really about partnerships. It's really about building up partnerships. We have a lot of community-based organizations, not-for-profits. Our clergy are phenomenal in this city. But we have to figure out a way to bring it all together, so that way we can go out into our communities, talk to young people. I just had a conversation with someone I just met, a young lady named Nina Saxon, who's an activist up in Harlem, and we talked about how we're going to bring young people to the table, and not the young people who we find in churches and in schools, but the young people who really need our guidance and our direction, how we're going to bring them together and try to, mediate their differences in order for them to put down the guns. So that's one of the things that we've already discussed with one of our community partners. And I think from my perspective, working along with the Patrol Bureau, working along with the detectives, how we can use the community engagement to give them what they need, Patrol and the Detective Bureau, to help solve crimes and help prevent crimes. And the things that we're going to do out there, is at the behest of the community. We're messengers, and what we're going to do is at the behest of the community. Stop the violence, put down the guns, let's create these partnerships. I've been hearing a lot of that, and that's what I'm willing to take on.
One of the biggest problems that the department has been facing has been the gang issues. People killing each other back and forth, as we know. I was at a particular event on Friday night in which they were honoring the memory of Pop Smoke because they just released the album.
Yes.
A lot of the cops, there were cops there, but they kept their distance and really didn't interact with the crowd or talk with the people that I saw. They were mostly staying back until one of the people that was there got into a car after drinking Hennessy all night and decided to slam into a bunch of cars. That's when the police had to get involved. What do you think needs to be happening in those kind of situations? Do you think that officers, people could be outreaching to those particular kind of events where young people are out there drinking, maybe smoking pot, maybe doing whatever they're doing, and interact in those situations?
Yes, I'm aware of the event on Friday. I was notified about the event late because I surely would have been out there because, one, I wanted to hear Pop Smoke's new album, but also I wanted to be out there to help talk to the young people out there. I understand that we have some fractured relationships out there, and that's going to be one of the challenges for myself, for the Community Affairs Bureau, and for this whole department. And I see myself sort of in the middle, the one that's going to help bring help with the introductions between the great people in this community who want to have the relationship with the cops, and the cops who may be a little disenfranchised and a little discouraged right now, to let them know there are a lot of people out here who support us. A lot of people support us. And I see my role, that's one of my roles, is being that person in the middle who's bringing them together so they can start doing the work without me being there. And that's going to be one of the challenges. And again, I'm looking forward to it.
Juliet first, and then you, please.
Hi, Juliet Papa from 1010 Lanes.
Hi, ma'am. How are you?
How are you? So how do you balance, or how do you plan to balance the need in communities for authority, law and order, with resistance to police and anti-police sentiment?
I think a lot of the balance is going to come from the community buy-in when we sit down with communities and understand what they really want from us. And we have to make them understand what part of the challenge will be. We will encounter people out there who will not want to follow what we're requesting of them on the behalf of the community. The community doesn't want you here playing loud music or doing whatever, conducting whatever behavior it may be. When we're doing that, and we're doing that on behalf of the community has to support us when we have to take police action, when we have to make an arrest. And that's part of the challenge. We have to have buy-in from the community. The community wants us to go out there and do things a certain way. They want us to be respectful. They want us to be fair. They want us to, show a little empathy and compassion and show a little patience, and I understand that. But the community also has to understand it comes a point where if we're not receiving the compliance, if the people are not following our requests, which is on behalf of the community, then the community has to support us when we have to make an arrest or issue a summons.
Miss, could you just state your name first, please?
Nicole Johnson.
I think I know who you are.
I can't see that far.
Talked a million times.
Absolutely.
I understand. I want to piggyback off of what you just said about building and balancing that relationship. We've seen over the years in Brooklyn North do, haunted houses, the Christmas sleigh ride, things like that, creative things to help bring the community together with officers. It's going to take more than that to get that relationship, to build that. What is your approach? Dig deeper a little bit about your first step doing so.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people recognize that that's a lot of, the great things and it's the fun things, but it doesn't really address the issue. The issue really boils down to the police-community relationship. When people start talking about issues of systemic racism and police brutality, these are the hard conversations that I'm prepared to take on, that I will take on. And any group who invites me to come have this conversation, I will be there. And not only am I going to be there, I'm going to bring officers from the community, officers from the local precincts, our neighborhood coordination officers, our brand new officers, our officers with 20 years on the job. I'm going to bring them to the table as well. We definitely have to develop a better understanding. People have to understand what we do out there and why we do it. But we also have to make sure that the community is involved with it. They're involved with how we're going to police. If you look at Harlem, what happened in Harlem last week, you have 400 to 500 people standing on a corner. I guarantee you, if we survey any block, north, east, south, or west of that corner, the community residents are going to say no. We don't want that in our community. But again, how do we partner with them? How do we work together in tandem to go out there and face that crowd and to have them respectfully follow what we need? We need community partners to stand up with us and say, hey, we don't want this in our community. And when we start having those deep conversations, and we start understanding what everybody wants and needs, I think we can go out there together as a team and start getting these results.
Ms.?
I'm Andrea Klein-Thomas with Channel 2.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Good.
Good, thank you.
Congratulations, first of all.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that.
Question is, do you think that any of the internal rhetoric, maybe from police unions, are undermining the efforts that you're trying to do in bridging the gap with the community?
I mean, our police unions have their roles. I mean, they're like any other union. Their job is to speak up for their members, protect their members, and to be a voice for them. But in my role, I'm also a voice of this department. So I'm not going to try and drown out the union. They have to do what they feel they need to do to protect their members. But my goal is also to protect our members, but also protect my communities as well. Work together, bring people together. It's not going to be easy. These last few days since I've been here, I've worked a lot of hours. I put a lot of hours on the books. It's not going to be an easy task, but this is something I wouldn't have accepted this job if I didn't think I could do it and help out this department, and help out our communities it's going to be part of the challenge.
Can I do a follow-up really quickly?
No, we'll get back to you, but first, Rocco, thank you. But
Good afternoon, Chief Rocco, Paris News. So if community affairs is now being looked at as a crime-fighting bureau in some ways, what does that mean? And does it mean that, for instance, if there is a shooting or a homicide, that you'll get involved with the squad and maybe point them to a pastor, a block leader, or a tenant leader, a way into the investigation that might not otherwise be there?
Community affairs has always been part of this crime-fighting strategy. When I was the commanding officer of precincts, when I was the commanding officer of Patrol Borough Brooklyn North, that one of my mandates was always for community affairs to respond to shootings, to respond to homicides. Our community affairs officers, sometimes they just have a way of connecting with people. We've learned a lot of information through the years by using our community affairs as a way to communicate with our families, our victims, people who are hurting. So it's always been a part of this challenge, a part of this crime-fighting strategy. My job is just to make sure we're doing it everywhere.
Ms.
Hi, Chrissy Felician here at WCBS City.
Hi, how are you?
Of course, congrats once again.
Thank you.
Of course, and you could just start by telling us also that the conversation of defunding police, that's always a constant thing we're hearing about before, so now will probably continue to be an issue. What's your response to hearing that, and also what is your message to black and brown men that I speak with that protest saying that they fear the police, they're scared? What do you have to say to people?
Okay, so it's a two-part question. First, let's start with defunding the police. When I first started hearing this chatter, this chant, defund the police, I had to take a little deeper look myself. And to some people, it means totally abolish the police. To some people, it means take certain, money away to put into other programs. Me speaking personally, if you're going to take money away from the police department and put it into programs, put it into the programs where communities are suffering from gun violence, put it into places where people are going to get jobs and be able to help their families out and maybe move away from street life. But I think we have to be careful what we ask for too. We want our police and we need our police and we need to be out there. So, when we take funds away from the police, it could result in less police. Some people may agree with it, some people may not agree with it. I've been speaking to people on both sides of that argument, and some people say absolutely not, we want more police. Some people say no, we don't want more police. But me personally, we need the police department. It sounds great to fund the police to certain people, but I don't really think we have a plan to deal with it afterwards. So right now, we have to work better with our police. We have to work on our relationships. We have to make sure that we're working together to really defeat the common threat that we're dealing with, and that's gun violence. Gun violence, all right? Last week, I was at the vigil for Brandon Hickson, and it was awful. A 17-year-old boy on his way to college, on a scholarship. I read the reports of young people who are in trouble, and you'll see arrest here, various trouble they've gotten into in their lives. And when I read about this young boy who's on his way to St. John's University to play basketball and to get to earn his college degree, he's never ever been in trouble. He's never been in trouble. This young man was destined for greatness, and I had to look his mother in the eyes last week. We have a common enemy, communities, cops, people everywhere, and that's gun violence, and we have to work together to defeat that. Addressing young black men and young brown men, absolutely. And again, one of my challenges going forward, when I go out to communities, I go right to the corner. I talk to the young men on the corner, and I always walk away feeling good because I have a decent conversation with the young men. They tell me how they feel about the police. They tell me how they feel about me. They tell me about the neighborhood. All the members of our department have to engage in that. All members of the community have to feel comfortable having conversations with us. We have to be straight up with the people in the communities, young men on the corners, young black men, young Latino men. We have to be straight up with them. We have to talk to them. We have to let them know we are people that they can approach. And I know it's going to be difficult because we're talking about, a historical relationship that hasn't always been good. But still, we have to move forward. we can keep yelling about defund the police, protests can keep going on. When do we move forward? When do we start healing? That's what I'm about right now.
Sir?
Liza from Telemundo. So going into that, I just answered, all the victims from the crimes that happened since July are minorities. A lot of them very young, 20s, 30s. What's the approach for these communities, the Latinos and the African American community? When I speak to the communities, they tell me that there's no policing going around, that police are scared to come into these communities. How are you going to change that mentality? According to the people that I talk to, in Latinos neighborhoods and African American neighborhoods, they tell me that there's not even any police presence because, according to them, the police is even scared to go into those residents.
Well, that may be what's told to you, but I think differently. I don't think that the police are scared to go into these neighborhoods. We've been going to these neighborhoods for years. I've been all over the city, even though the majority of my career was spent in Brooklyn and in Queens. Even in my short time here, I was in the Bronx last week, and I was in Harlem last week, and my officers were with me, and we went out there and we spoke to people. Right now, they're having a basketball game tribute for young Brandon, and my officers are up there. We're up there. We're talking to the community. We're meeting with the community. We're trying to work on the healing. So we're going to go into the communities, and if any community says that we're not going up there, I'd like to hear from them. So I assure you and them that I will be there. I will be there with my officers.
Shana?
Hi, how are you? Yes. Thank you.
On the heels of what Chief Monahan was saying yesterday, his biggest thing was there is not enough support from the city council. There's not enough support from the DAs. There's no system in place to keep a lot of, gang members essentially off the street. This is why we're seeing their theories. This is why we're seeing a rise in violent crime. Where do you stand on what the city council has been producing and putting out, and what the DAs are doing and how they're handling certain violent cases?
And I don't agree with everything that the city council has done. I don't agree with everything that the district attorneys have done. I don't agree with everything. But what I do believe we need, and as I said, how I plan on going out to the communities and bringing everybody to the table so we can understand what policing looks like. It goes both ways. All our partners need to be at the table. We have to understand what our communities need. We have to understand what the police department need, what our elected officials and our district attorneys need. So I think a big part of correcting a lot of things is just everyone being at the table. Everyone being at the table. I watched the news last night, and I can't remember the lady's name, but I watched this elderly lady say that gun unit went away, and now we're seeing all these shootings. And here's an elderly lady, all right, African-American elderly lady, who's saying she wants to see our anti-crime team brought back. So there are different people. There are many people in the community with different opinions. We need to really sit down at the table with all our stakeholders and figure out how we can do what's best for this community, for this city.
So before we do any follow-up questions, there's a little bit of video, I think, of what the chief has done in Brooklyn, and we'll try and show you that, and then we can do any follow-ups that people might have. This is the Brooklyn Virtual DJ Contest from a couple of months ago. And this is Haunted House. And these are the ways that the Chief's unit has engaged in Brooklyn. Superheroes. It's whatever events are current, whatever ways to bring people in, whether it's children or the clergy. So we just wanted you to have a little bit of a look at that before we went forward for any further questions. Liz?
What do you think is the biggest obstacle with the community and the police? Like, what is the biggest bridge that you have to overcome that way? And what's the biggest bridge, internally? What's the biggest obstacle?
That's a good one. I really think that communication's the key. Like I said, in my last few days of listening to communities, a lot of people say they want to work with the police. They want to have a relationship with the police. So now it's up to us to go forward. We have to go make those phone calls, ring those doorbells, stand on the street corners. Wherever we can meet the community at, we need to do that and start having the conversations, exchange phone numbers. We need to start creating and rebuilding trust, okay? And I think it's the same thing internally, because it goes both ways. The community feels, some mistrust and they feel a certain way about the police. It goes both ways. Right now, the police don't feel like they're supported. But when I'm talking to people, and there are a lot of people who are, raising their voices in support of the police, I have to figure out how to bring everybody to the table. I met with all the community council presidents via Zoom. 6 out of 8 boroughs so far. I have to just finish Brooklyn later this week. And the community council presidents and the community council boards said they support their police. They spoke highly of their precincts, despite what's going on. And I know that the police and the community councils have a special relationship. And I asked everybody from the community council if they could just go to the precincts, take the board, take a few community members, and just let the officers know that you do appreciate them, and to thank them and maybe give them a round of applause. Because some of our officers are feeling disenfranchised. You have young police officers out there, 2 and 3 years on the job. They don't have 30 years experience and seen a lot and been through a lot and know how to handle certain things. Right now, they need to hear community support. So I asked the community council boards if they could take their boards into their respective precincts and just let the police officers know how much they support them. They told me how much they support them, but I'm not the one who needs to hear it. It's the young officers in the street who need to hear it.
One more question, Rocco?
Chief, why did you become a police officer, and what could you do to increase the number of black men, I guess, who work in the department? A number that's remained steady or declined over the last few years, even as the number of Hispanic officers has steadily risen and Asian officers have jumped fairly sharp.
Years ago, in the mid-'80s, when I was in Andrew Jackson High School out in Queens, the police came to the school. It was actually because of officers coming into the school. And it wasn't a young black officer. It was a young white officer who actually spoke to me and gave me the paperwork to sign up for the police test. And I signed up for the police test, and at first I didn't think about it. I had never thought about being a police officer. I always wanted to be a lawyer when I was young. But after high school and I went to college, and I was just trying to find my way, and then I started getting the notifications to follow up with the police process, and I just started looking at what was going on. And then in the interim, I was actually hired by the Department of Transportation. I was a traffic agent for a year. So I was already working in civil service. I was already wearing a uniform. And it just was a natural progression, and I'm glad I made the decision. As far as recruiting more young black males, again, I think it's just about the conversation, being in the schools, being in the churches. We have a lot of young qualified black men in this city who can be phenomenal police officers, but we have to go out there. We have to talk to young people. We have to show them why this is a good profession, that they can make a good living for themselves, and that they can be an impact in the community. A lot of people know Detective Daughtry, who's been with me his whole career, but a lot of people don't know his mother dropped him off to the precinct when he was a young boy. He had lost his father. He liked the police, and his mother dropped him off to the precinct. He was basically raised by the precinct, and now he's a detective. He's been a member of this department for 14 years, so every time I look at him, I'm proud, because I know I was a part of that. We could have lost guys many years ago, but instead we kept him, and he's doing very well for himself. And there are a lot of young men in this department who have that same story, where they met someone and they connected with someone, and now they're police officers. So this is even more of a reason why it's important for us to connect with so many young people out here, young men, young women, and show them that they can, earn a great living doing this job and be an impact in their community.
We'll take 2 more. Tina?
2 more? Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
finish up with you if you say your name
Right
this
outside
time.
the building here on that side of the street, next to the education building, there's the graffiti, kill cops. I mean, it's just, I want your thoughts on that.
I mean, when you see the amount of gun violence we suffered over the weekend, to put the word kill in any sentence, kill cops, kill anyone, person, it's terrible. It's terrible. We're not supposed to ever advocate for anyone's death. You know, I don't think we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to advocate for change. We're supposed to advocate for safety. We're supposed to advocate for healing. We should never ever advocate for anyone's death, and I just think it's inappropriate.
Okay.
There's been an ongoing situation.
You get the last question, Todd?
Yeah, we'll get
Todd getting the last question?
Yes.
Okay.
You may even tell us who he is.
Might as well. Anyway, there's been a situation across the street at City Hall. What efforts has this office department, in fact, done to reach out to people who are still there? There's been some situations over there, and you must know. There's an ongoing problem of a lot of homeless have settled in there. What outreach, what kind of things can you do and or have done?
Well, I mean, the thing I could probably do the most is try to start the conversation. Ultimately, the police commission is going to make that decision when we're going to move in and tackle that situation. And I'll be guided by him as to how I'm going to step in with my new role and how we're ultimately going to handle it. I mean, like I said, right now we're in some difficult times in the city. We're seeing some different things, but we're not seeing, this isn't something new. We've seen this a few years ago. So when the time is right, we have an amazing leader here, and he's going to give us our direction, and we'll rectify that situation when he's ready for it.
So thank you, everybody. The chief is very available over the weeks ahead. Just let us know if there's a story idea, and we'll talk it over with him and see where we go forward. Thank you, Chief, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Cool mask.
During these times, look at the mask I can do it.
Oh, yeah, indeed, I hear that.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You'll see.